Tracy and IQ drive to the post office in the Aston, but it turns out there was never really a package and it was all just a dastardly ruse, so Jaws could hijack the car by pulling out some wires and biting into them. It seems it's that easy to hijack a DB5. Anyway, Jaws makes off in the car with Tracy still in the back. Leiter and Farragut show up with a van, and the gang make haste after the car, using IQ's tracking device to find the DB5. They follow it to some airbase thing, where the villains are about to load the DB5 onto a plane, when Bond uses some of IQ's liquid to... let me rephrase that. Junior uses some of IQ's superconducting liquid... Bond manages to stop the truck carrying the DB5 and finds Tracy in the boot. But the game's not over yet, as Jaws sneaks up on the kids and even cracks a joke.
Well, Bond. I see you booked passage on Scum Airlines.
Yeah, I preferred it when he was silent too. Jaws chucks the pair in the boot, loads the car into the plane and heads to the cockpit to meet the scum lord purple guy, who is more bothered about stroking his dog than flying the plane. Seriously, who is flying this plane? Anyway, Junior and Tracy use IQ's gadget watch to escape and plan to use the Aston Martin's flight mode to escape the plane.
If Jaws hotwired the ignition, so can I.
Oh, Junior, you're such an amateur, you can't do anything right. That's not how you hotwire a car, this is how you hotwire a car. With the car hotwired, a fight breaks out and the plane starts going down, and for some reason Bond sets the car to continually ram the cockpit door and jumps out of the plane with Tracy using a parachute. Jaws jumps out too and lands in a barn, but the plane crashes and goes up in flames, with the DB5 still in it. Oh dear. Actually, is the Scum Lord still in there? I mean, we never saw him jump out. Is he dead? Is that it for him? I don't know. Anyway, Bond makes it back to the school and Mitchell pops in to say,
Tracy told me about your rescue, James. Good work.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And luckily I was able to destroy the Aston Martin.
Not so lucky, James. I just talked to your uncle. That pulse generator was never in the Aston Martin at all. Scum, and we, were misinformed.
What? You mean all that was for nothing?
Well, not quite. You did save Tracy.
well, yeah, but Tracy was only put in harm's way because everyone thought that the Aston Martin carried the... I mean, you know, if it wasn't for Bond... Well, you know what, never mind, let's carry on.
But still, the car was destroyed.
And, you know, judging by your uncle's reaction to when Mr. Silver destroyed his beloved Aston Martin DB5, I can't see him going that easy on you, Junior.
In fact, all the pieces have just been shipped back. Come have a look.
Must I? What? Who?
A gift from 007.
Gift! What? So Silver destroys the car, he gets a knife in the back. This little toad destroys it, he gets a brand new convertible built out of the remains of it. Well, I guess Uncle James must have just been a softie back then. Wait a minute, built out of the remains of the old car, but... what? So wait a minute, it took the same amount of time for James Bond Jr. to get from the site of the crash to the school as it did for the remains of the old Aston Martin to be collected, taken back to MI6, Q build a brand new car out of it and have that car shipped back to the school. Those two things took the same, well, whatever, I just hope Q got paid for all this overtime.
Oh, look at all these gadgets. Imagine what I could do with this car.
Oh, no, you don't.
Oh my god, it's that Banshee noise again. Please don't tell me that's part of the score. I can't cope with that every episode. So that's James Bond Jr. It's kind of hard to really give a fair analysis of this show because it's, you know, it's a kid's show. It's a Saturday morning cartoon from the early 90s, so I guess you have to judge it as one of those and not really compare it to the main series of Bond films. And well, even on the basis of Saturday morning cartoon, it really isn't that great. And in my opinion, the biggest problem is that it's just so bloody bland. I mean, if you took away all the James Bond trimmings, as it were, there'd really be nothing of interest here. Everyone is a cardboard cutout, the plot is the most basic and dull thing, the music is hardly any Bond flavour at all, the character designs and voices are plain, the animation is just about on par with Saturday morning cartoons of the time, which means it's not really anything too great. There's just nothing really there. There's the odd kind of nice reference in there, like centering a plot around the DB5 is cool, and Jaws is there, though really it's just Jaws in name only. I mean, this character is nothing like Jaws from the films, except that, he has abnormal teeth that he uses to threaten people. That's really the only similarity, but it's nice that they do the Moonraker thing and have him fall out of a plane without a parachute. I'm not sure if naming the girl Tracy has anything to do with Junior's deceased aunt, or if it's just coincidence, and to be honest, that's the same with the parachute gag from Moonraker. I don't know if these are intentional references, or whether they are just, completely random thoughts of the writers. Interestingly, this episode does contain a couple of things that would appear in future Bond films. For example, using an EMP weapon to destroy computers in London was obviously a plot point from GoldenEye, and a remote-controlled car would appear in Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm pretty sure those were original ideas from people working on the films, though. I don't think anyone actually stole the idea from this show. I don't think anyone seriously said, hey, you remember that James Bond cartoon from earlier this decade? Well, why don't we use plot elements from episode 1 of that show? And something else, I've never heard anyone express a fond memory for this show, or say anything like, gee, that show was great, I used to look forward to that every weekend. You hear people do that with, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Transformers. It just seems to be forgotten by most people, this show that is, which is either a testament to its blandness, or, I don't know, maybe it just wasn't shown in a very good time slot. If it didn't have the title James Bond Jr., this thing would have been long forgotten and never seen or heard from again. However, I do find it fascinating that the show even exists. I feel like in some respects it's like a Star Wars holiday special, in that it's something that no one involved in the production of the main series of films ever seems to refer to or talk about, which is amusing, because it's there, and no one's ever really done much talking about it. I don't know how or why this show even came into being, and, well, you know what, I can think of only two possible explanations. One being a rights issue. I don't know if Eon had to keep using adaptations of Fleming characters in order to keep the rights to them, or something like that. But the only other explanation I can think of is that, well, okay, License to Kill had just been released, and the series was aiming to be harder, tougher, and more brutal with Timothy Dalton, and, moving away from the fun, campy, silly sort of films that they were with dear old Rog in the role. And, the series still needed an in for the kids. Up until License to Kill, Bond films had never been especially brutal or anything. I mean, there's nothing really much in any of the previous films that I think would be deemed unsuitable for kids over 8 years old or something, and, young boys love James Bond. I think most of us became Bond fans from watching the films in childhood, but, License to Kill did not get a PG rating in the UK or the US, and the higher ratings meant that it was harder for kids to go and see the latest Bond adventures, so I assume the cartoon was made to solve the problem of how do we still get kids into Bond when they can't actually see a Bond film in the cinema. It's saying something that I find the reasoning for the show existing more interesting and compelling than the show itself, and I'd love to be able to talk to anyone who had some major involvement with the show so that I could find out how and why the hell it came into being. Saying that, maybe it would be judgmental of me to write off the entire series after just one episode. I mean, every show takes a while to find its feet. I wonder what future episodes will bring.
I got it, Dr. No.
At last,